thank you very much for being patient with us and being our road podcast guest. Welcome.
We're so excited that you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
Yay.
Yeah, it's good to join you guys on the road.
Yeah, I know. This
Thank
is,
you.
I can't even, this feels really surreal.
For anyone listening, we are in like what feels like the middle of nowhere, Ohio.
Zanesville.
Specifically
Zanesville.
We took like an interesting voyage to get here last night.
Yeah, Michaela was freaking out. She thought we were like doing the Hills Have Eyes thing.
That's what it felt like. But it's really pretty. It's like very green and lush and not sunny, but yeah.
I don't think it's sunny there. Either,
I don't think it is.
No, I mean, right now it is, but
nice.
It's supposed to be all cloudy and.
I just keep telling myself.
So yeah.
April showers bring May flowers. So
yeah.
Even though we're already in May,
not
but
April.
That's all right. That's my mantra. I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to tell the people who you are?
Yeah, so we're just going to tell your viewers a little bit about ourselves, and then we'll dive into who you are and your story, and we'll really get rolling. So we are Sean and Michaela.
Awesome.
Wild Hearts Podcast. I am a photographer. I work a lot with couples, intimate, adventurous couples. I do a lot of women's empowerment portraiture, and I have a co-working kind of photography studio space back in Dover, New Hampshire. And as for the podcast, we are currently living in a bus on the road for the next 5 months, which is why we are doing this video live, struggling to get it started because this is our first time doing this.
Yeah, it's like our first time.
We've, I think, day 10 living out of the bus. So we are, yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah. So I'm Sean Adam, co-host of Wild Hearts Podcast, the driver of Barb, the bus, and also an inspirational, one of the co-driver of the bus, and an inspirational speaker on the topic of mental health. And this lovely lady we have on the other side is Damla. And Damla, you are the owner of A Drop of Om Healing. And Damla is a healer, helps other self-healers and healers move beyond their energetic wounds and shine brighter than they thought possible, so that they can fully show up in their lives, heal themselves, their families, and their soul tribe. Welcome, Damla.
Yes!
That's
what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you hear it out loud, it's kind of neat to hear that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I love the way you describe it too, and I think the only thing I can remember, like our last meeting when we talked, I still describe it as like I feel like I just smoked a huge joint and was just like.
Yeah, so we met Damla you came to my studio, and we just like, first of all, she shows up with like 2 bars of chocolate, and I was like, okay, you can stay. But just like Sean and I, neither of us are really at a loss of words often, but I feel like there was just something about your presence that was so calming, and just like, I think like after like 25 minutes, Sean and I both just looked at each other and we're like, I don't really know, like I don't really have words right now. I'm just like
right,
you know.
Yeah.
So...
I feel like we should say, like, you guys have a lovely, beautiful, cute space, Maple and Moon Creative, which I love. I hope to collaborate with you on something there somehow. But yeah, the space was also already chill, I feel like, when I got there. So,
apparently we don't have that quite figured out with the bus yet.
Tighter space. Yeah, we're working on it.
We got our incense burning right now.
And sage and Palo Santo and crystals. We're working on it.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. You also you have a lot of people coming in and out.
Yeah.
So that's gonna keep changing the energy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of moms coming out here, childs, and yeah, it's just.
Speaking of moms, happy belated Mother's Day. Did you have?
Thank you. I did. And then I had an interesting morning. Do you guys want me to tell you?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, this is great.
So it's one of those things that I like to share with people, because we have this idea that, you know, if you're a healer, you're always chill, you know, everything's perfect, which is not the case at all, because I lost my whatever this morning. And it happened at 5:30 a.m. my daughter climbs on the bed, and I mean, I kid you not, she just kicks me in the boob. Like, that's what she does. She climbs on the bed, she kicks me in the boob, and she's like, "Mommy, hug me."
Aww.
She's 7. She's getting bigger. So she climbs up. At the same time, because she opened the door, my cat rushes in. So and I'm like in this beautiful place. So I have this dream that I'm trying to figure out. Like, I don't want to wake up yet. I'm trying to go into the symbols in the dream, like, what does it mean? You know, that beautiful space. Meanwhile, I'm getting kicked on this side. And then I hear this chewing sound. My cat starts to chew on one of the cables under the bed. So I'm like, somebody get to the cat. So we both just jump up from the cat. My husband does too. So then we rush downstairs. I'm trying to get breakfast ready. You know, my daughter's not able to decide on what breakfast she wants. And then all of a sudden I hear a chewing sound again from my cat. She's found this tiny piece of plastic under my daughter's like art table that she's desperately trying to eat. And so, but my daughter and I start to run after the cat. And meanwhile, I'm like, why is there plastic under your table? Why is there plastic under your table? And that's my trigger, is, which I know, not being listened to. So at that point, while trying to, which by the way, my cat is like running away from us, holding on to that piece of plastic, like about to choke on it. I'm trying to pin her down. Meanwhile, I hear myself yelling, like, why is there plastic under your table? Like, screaming. So then, luckily, my cat just leaves the plastic covered in saliva. I'm able to get it out of there safely. And then I'm like, okay, breathing. And meanwhile, my daughter is, my husband goes to my daughter. She's crying. She's upset because she feels like she did something wrong. So now we have to sit down and have a hug. And I feel bad because I lost my thing, and I'm apologizing to her, and I'm saying, like, this is not about you, it's about me, but also you need to pick up after your trash and don't leave pieces of plastic everywhere for our cat to choke on. So yeah, that was my morning.
Wow. So super grounded.
So within like 10 minutes of waking up, I was screaming, running after a cat, and meanwhile I'm texting with my cousin, trying to help her with something. But wow. Anyways, so coming back to my center has been like, okay, like, I need to recreate some sort of waking up for today, because that wasn't ideal. Also, it's like immediately I know that that's my trigger, not feeling like being heard. Right? About something that I've told her, that I feel like I've told her again and again. And it's not that, I mean, she's 7. She's not going to remember everything all the time. Yeah. And it's not that. But it's at that point when I'm getting reactive, I already know that like today I need to take care of myself. Like after this, it's going to be just self-care, self-healing, whatever, so that I can be a better human being and a mom this afternoon, hopefully.
Yeah,
that's but isn't that's so cool about like being a healer, right? Is it's like, I think it's so cool that you share that, because I think people get this idea that they're like these Zen master, you know, people, but all that stuff is just like you've learned how to bring it back to center.
Yeah, and then it's, in the past it had been that when that happens and when I lose it, I think there was a piece that needed to happen, that I knew why that was happening and how there's no one to blame. That piece needed to happen for me to get to the realization that, like, when I'm losing myself in anger or in whatever, it's nobody else's fault. And it's not my fault too. It's just a realization that now we need to take care of ourselves and each other a little better. Yeah.
So what does that look like for you? Like a day of like self-care and like taking care of yourself. Like, can you maybe
Oh goodness.
that?
I don't even know. Honestly, it changes on a daily basis. Like yesterday, I was able to step outside the house, and I did get, take care of some errands and whatever. But it was just stepping out was my cure. Just stepping out. Today it might be that I'm gonna lie down with my crystals on me, and then tomorrow it might be that I don't have the few hours I have between seeing clients and having this interview. If I have 10 minutes, it might be that I tap for 10 minutes. So whatever I can fit in there and whatever makes sense to me at that moment. And I'm very open to, so I don't have like, so on days like this, I wish that I woke up at 4:30 instead of 5:30, and I already had my shower, maybe some, exercise. I did my meditation, and then I was all zen and ready for my day to begin. I wasn't, and I know that realistically that's not going to happen, and I'm not one of those people that I know right now about myself that's going to have like the set, this is what I'm going to do every single day kind of person. But I'm very good with recognizing when I'm beginning to get out of my body and into my head, and then taking it back down, and asking for help. Like I did yesterday, I was like, I need to get out of the house. So I got out of the house and left my daughter with my husband, and they played video games or they did whatever, but they survived. So yeah.
That's amazing. So why don't we talk about your journey to becoming a healer? I know whether people are or not, you're originally from Turkey, so maybe kind of just start a broad overview of like kind of your journey over to US and just all the things that kind of led you to becoming a healer, because I think there's so many paths to that, and each and every one is individual and unique, and I think yours is awesome. So if you'd be
take us back.
Okay, so I was born in Turkey, born and raised, and I studied engineering. I studied textile engineering, and you can think of it as, it's very close to mechanical engineering. And once my degree ended, I moved to Germany for a year to start my MBA, my business degree. And while I was in Germany, an opportunity arose for me to complete my studies in the US. So I moved to US after a year in Germany. So right after college, I basically left Turkey to go to Germany and then to the US. And after my business degree, so the path was very clear. Like, I'm studying engineering, which I really enjoyed studying engineering. And then I studied business. And after I finished my business degree in the US, I started a consulting job in corporate world. So I was thinking about it this morning. My corporate job felt very much like, how you go on to try on a dress that you see in the in the display or whatever, and it looks great.
Yeah.
And then you put it on and it looks nothing like that on you.
Yeah.
That's how my corporate job felt. It felt wrong and just like constricting and just suffocating on so many levels. But mainly the most important for me was I couldn't find any meaning in it. There was no meaning in it. So, but I continued in it. It was one of the ways that I could stay in the US, which I very much wanted to stay in the US. So a couple years into my job, I left the office at 9 p.m., came home at 10 p.m. And that night I woke up at 2 or 3 a.m. with this incredible pain in my head, in all my body. I couldn't speak. I was slurring my words. So we went to the emergency room. They did a spinal tap, which was done wrongly, and I ended up actually crawling on the floor for 2 weeks because my spinal fluid was leaking. So, and when I look back at it, it was one of the points where I lived up here above my head. There was no body. I mean, some of that is cultural, the way I grew up, and some of that is family oriented, like what's expected of you, like you studied engineering and then you studied business and then this is what you're supposed to do, kind of thing. So there wasn't any paradigm of like I have a body, let me take care of that, other than sleeping and eating, which also wasn't very conscious. And then there wasn't any paradigm of like I have needs, like I'm allowed to have needs. Kind of emotional, physical, like you survive, somehow you survive, but it's not to the point of it wasn't an intelligent or heart-based level of surviving when I look back at myself. So I was literally brought down to my knees, crawling on the floor to realize that I need to take care of my body. So then began my journey of yoga. I started practicing yoga. I felt absolutely in love with yoga, like not immediately, but after a while, like after realizing it could give me some relief. And my new dream became becoming a yoga teacher. That was the dream that I nourished for like 4 years. And then at the end of those 4 years, my company, it's funny how life sort of kicks you. My company actually went bankrupt. So I was at a crossroad of I could either go find another corporate job, which everything in my being said no to, or I could pursue becoming a yoga teacher, which I did. So I became like, I didn't just become like, I became like all in yoga teacher. I was reading everything I could find. I was going to yoga like 4 or 5 times a week. I was in super great shape. I started to teach like 10, 15 classes. And during that time, we actually moved to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
From Washington, D.C. And I started to manage a yoga studio, a local yoga studio here. So I was all in. So the surprise was in 2012 when I became pregnant and I gave birth to my daughter through an emergency C-section, that all of that sort of vanished and evaporated. So I was again brought down to the level of understanding how depleted I was and how much healing I needed. So after the emergency C-section, it was all a blur. It was just like after having the high of this beautiful pregnancy, getting more intuitive, all of a sudden down on the ground, like below the ground. That was the way I can describe it. I was going deeper and deeper down towards the ground, while there's this light being in my hands asking for me to take care of her needs. Whereas I'm realizing, like, as life hit me, like how depleted I was on so many levels to begin with, and now I'm supposed to take care of this human being. So it was that point where but the fight in me was alive, because I remember clearly having that point. I'm in the shower and I'm like, I'm gonna do everything it takes to get out of this darkness and to nourish myself. Yoga wasn't an option because my body felt strange and different because I hadn't been able to practice. Meditation wasn't an option. So my first entry point into reconnecting with myself and into building my reserves of nourishment was through mantra. It was something I could do while I nursed. I began to chant and chant and chant, and there was some recognition of relief. I'm not even going to call it relief completely, but just some recognition of that relief could be possible. And then came crystals. And I began to just intuitively place them on me, started to work with them. And then at the time, my in-laws were visiting us. So my mother-in-law, who her dad left when she was 3 years old. So major trauma in her life. So I was just like, can I work with crystals on you? And then I put crystals on her. And I intuitively just guided her through this meditation that just came to me in that moment. I guided her through the meditation. She woke up. She went into a different place. She woke up. There were tears in her eyes streaming down, which she wasn't crying, but it was like her eyes were like, it was like cleansing. Her eyes were crying. She came out of it saying that she heard music that I didn't play. And it was just, she was a whole different person. So here was I, and I could feel the relief in myself more and more with the mantras and even more with the crystals. But it was like her experience was my confirmation almost that I can do this with others too. And I can, and that's how chakra bliss healing, the healing method that I practice and work with, was born.
Amazing.
So yeah, and then came sound, and then what I'm doing right now is when I look at all of that, the pieces, the mantra, the crystals, the sound, and even the EFT, it's all vibrational healing. It's all addressing what may be out of tune in our system. So yeah,
that's amazing.
For anyone who like isn't familiar at all with like any of this, like chakra healing, like can you maybe just give like a brief like description of like chakra bliss healing? Is that what it's called?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you just talk a bit more about that?
I can't, but let's talk first about like why would you even heal?
Yeah.
Or would you even consider going to a healer like myself or someone else?
Absolutely.
So and I have on my website, we can talk about it after too, a resource called 12 questions to determine your energetic wounds. So, and how they show up in your life. So how trauma and energetic wounds are trauma. It can be big, it can be small, and we hold records of trauma to remind ourselves what was dangerous once and what could be dangerous again today. And then we also live off of those stories of how we survived. But the problem is that how we survived then isn't going to help us now. So the reason you want to see a healer is because something doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. You wake up, parts of your body are numb. So if you're not able to go into your body and feel certain parts, that's clue number one. Clue number two, the body begins to get louder with sensation, with pain, discomfort, indigestion, and other things where it's trying to tell you the story it has been carrying. Okay, and then the other piece of this is emotions, your emotions that come up, like the anger that bursts and is just in your face and in other people's face, the sadness, the fear and anxiety and the worrying, or the desire, meaning not the desire in a positive sense, but the desire that you cannot control, addictions, that sort of thing. So all of those are telling you that there's a part of you that's creating a dysfunction in your life. So what I do with people is, first of all, I over time, I've also realized that I'm able to tune into someone and sort of get where they're at. And the chakra system is just my way of knowing that or interpreting that. Chakras are, yes, they're physical, but they're a symbolic way of understanding where you are in life. Okay, so you guys are traveling, for instance. So I know that your first chakra is going to be out of whack, like even before I tune into you, because that's your rooting, right? That's your feeling safe. And driving is inherently very dangerous. Like you have to be very alert. So your system is bathed in adrenaline. So that goes into the second chakra too. That goes into your kidneys. All right. And then your third chakra is holding your power. So once 1 and 2 are going to be out of whack, that's going to come up to the third chakra where your digestion is going to start to get affected and so on. Yeah. Yes. So
little TMI.
When I tune into you and when I see something like, you know, your third chakra, your place of power, your place of digestion starts to speak to me, that's where I'm going to start the work. Okay. Except if you come to me in a state where I was in after my birth, where I was completely and utterly depleted and didn't even know that I was depleted, how much I was depleted on a physical and emotional level, then I'm going to say to you, you know what, let me lie you down here before we can bring up the trauma or even the remnants of trauma for us to look at and neutralize and shift. And I can talk about how that happens too. We need to bring your nervous system like way down. Like you first need to take care of yourself so that we can begin the actual work of digging up the trauma and healing it. And that piece happens 2 ways, with sound and intention and the electromagneticity of my hands. That's the chakra bliss healing. I'm able to change and shift some of the energy around your field. And it's real because you don't end on your skin. You extend beyond your skin. You have an electromagnetic, photonic field around you. Mm-hmm. And then the second piece I do with people is, and that goes to the EFT, that goes to the coaching or the consulting part, where it doesn't, like you can have a massage like twice a week. You can go to yoga, I don't know, 4 times a week. You can do all of these things to take care of yourself. And you could even receive like energy healing, I don't know, every day. Work on yourself, get work done every day. Unless you change your perspective, the way you relate to your past, present, and your future, nothing's gonna change. So you need to be able to not only change your physical nervous system and then change your field around you, and then you need to change how you relate to all of this.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
100%.
So powerful.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like so interesting too, because I feel like lately I've been reading a lot more about like energy work and how like a lot of disease is like trapped energy and all this different stuff. So I guess I'd be really interested to maybe get your opinion, and I don't know if you have one or not, about like a role Western medicine plays versus like more Eastern medicine energy work and crystal work. Because I know for me personally, like I've moved very far away from Western medicine, except for like extreme cases. I do think it has its place, but I have found that this stuff has been much more life-changing than any Western medicine ever has for me.
Okay, so there's a place for everything, right? In my world, though, I feel like the distinction becomes, someone was asking me the other day, like, is the root cause of something the body? Is the root cause something that there's a disturbance in your field? Is it, you know, you have a mental construct? And my response to that is all of the above. And I don't distinguish between like a mental, emotional circumstance or thing that's happening in your life versus what's happening in the body. For me, those are all vibrational clues. So the vibrations around you and the vibrations are on your body and in your body are all tied in together. They're one and the same. So, and if you look actually on a grander scale, where the physics talks about entanglement, right? We all started with the Big Bang. So once the Big Bang exploded, we're now all entangled in each other's business, or, you know, electrical reality. So what Western medicine does so well is it just looks at one part of you and says, you know, there's something going on in your left shoulder, like there's the fluid is missing, you know, there's something going on there. And this is what we can do about it to treat, like we'll strengthen the muscles, we'll do this and we'll do that. When I look at the left shoulder, immediately I'm wondering, the left side symbolizes the feminine, or the mother, or the maternal energy. So I'm wondering what's going on in your maternal side. I'm also wondering, shoulders are all about carrying the weight of the world. And since this is the left of the heart, it relates to how we look at the events in the world. So I'm wondering how much worrying you do about the news that you receive. I'm also wondering what else is going on. If this is tied to your third chakra, right? Meaning, are you someone who wants to control what's happening? And when you're not able to control that, does it show up as even more weight on your shoulder? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
So like what would be a piece of advice that you have for somebody who has maybe been like struggling with something for like a long time, and like going back to this idea of like cultivating this relationship with your like past, future, and like present self, because so much of it involves like, I mean, I believe so much healing involves going back to your like childhood a lot of times, and then but it gets like overwhelming to be in this present moment where maybe you have an illness going on and you're being prescribed certain drugs, but like also like where do you start? Do you know what I mean? Like if you've been struggling with something for a long time and you want to kind of go down this more like holistic or like energetic route of healing, like do you have this is kind of like a long-winded question of just like a good starting place for people?
Go get help.
Yeah.
Okay, what's healing? Healing to me is not being cured.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily. Healing to me is what you just described, being okay with the past, present, and the future. And the healing doesn't mean that you're gonna like everything that's happening here in the now. But part of that healing is that when you're struggling so much with what's happening here, whether it's a physical symptom, whether it's your relationship with yourself, shaming, blaming, judgment, whatever, when you're struggling so much, you kind of need the support of someone who can look at you and say, okay, let's get you out of here and into your heart. And let's reconnect the dots, because the other piece of my work is when you're struggling here and in the now, it's not just you who is struggling, but it's the little girl in you who had these unmet needs when she was 5 years old. So you got to find ways to nourish her. Also in our DNA, we carry generations and generations of electrical information, or magnetic energetic information. There might be pieces in here that don't even belong to just you. You might be carrying the anxiety of your ancestors who had potentially much more hardship than you did. So they had reason to be scared, but you're stuck in that scared or fear here in the now. So you got to be able to open up and dissect those threads, so you're not lost in what's wrong with me. What's wrong with me and why can't I get out of this? Versus bring it to how can I be with this? And if it's hard for you to be with this just by yourself, you got to get help. That's the point where you see a healer like me, or you see someone you trust. By the way, like, I'm not a healer for everyone. I'm not for everyone. You got to be willing to take the leap of faith to try what will work for you. Even if you tried 100 million things, try again. That comes back to that fire, that desire to to be there for yourself. Even if you failed a million times, fail again. What do you have to lose? But perhaps there's a chance for connection. And I think what I want to stand for in my work is that I represent the possibility that there is a chance for you to connect with yourself, and there is a chance for you to be okay here in the now. So that's what my work represents, and that's what I represent as a healer.
I love what you're talking about, because I think it's so important. I can honestly talk about this in my own journey, is like when you first get started, like let's just say something in the present is affecting you, regardless of, again, if it's coming from the past or even ancestral stuff, like it can be so overwhelming, because I think there are so many different avenues you can go. And I remember experiencing that myself, and like you said, you just got to try. And I think, even speaking from my experience, like the path will lay itself out. You know what I mean? You just have to be willing to try and understand that something different can happen, because I'm sure you can speak to this. Like, we're not meant to, as human beings, be in like chronic pain or constant anxiety or digestion. Like, none of that is what we're supposed to operate under.
Okay. I don't know. I wouldn't say that. Like, I don't know what your soul journey is. Maybe you are meant to be in that.
Okay.
Okay. But I know that I cannot judge what life gives you. But what I offer people is, what if whatever it is, what if you can be with it? What if you can be with it? And then the piece that is hard for people that I find is the vulnerability, right? When you come see someone like me, it's almost like you're exposing yourself to be seen and held, but also to be seen in ways that you haven't been seen. So what if there's something in there that's scary or uncomfortable, or, and that is a part of the journey too, when we begin to connect the dots for you and see, okay, this is coming from your past, but this is coming from you. You got to make a shift in your life. That's not necessarily always comfortable.
I love that. And I love this idea of you said this a couple minutes ago, not so much like asking what is wrong with me. And because I think we do kind of live in a society where we're constantly like, any ache or pain that we feel, it's like, what is wrong with me? Or like, what do I need to make this go away? And of course, like a lot of times that just comes with a Band-Aid solution. But really digging into this idea of not what is wrong with me, but like, yeah, how can I connect with feeling? Or like, what can I like ask myself or my body, like what it needs? Like, what are you trying to tell me?
Yeah. And it's hard, right? I mean, I'm on the same boat. You guys are on the same boat. Like, my heart goes out to each and every person who chooses to wake up in the morning and live this life with whatever they have going on, and whatever they had dealt with in the past, and whatever might be coming for now. So it's hard. Like, every single day is hard. But within that hardship, there are opportunities for you to connect with yourself again and again and again. Like, for me, for instance, like, I had a very, very shitty morning for my standards, because I don't consider myself a yelling person.
Yeah.
But at that point, like, when I look back at it, I'm like, I could have said, you know what, like, just give me 5 minutes in the bathroom alone. Just shut the door and said, like, if I took that time to myself, maybe things could have gone smoother. I don't know. But then, like, it's not for me to judge that even at this point, but it's for me to realize, okay, this low point for me is a clear sign that I need to take even better care of myself than I am taking. And I know for me, like, I have a lot on my plate right now. It's also for me to realize, okay, it's time, this is the time to prioritize and take a breath. And I ask myself, like, if I just take a 10-minute walk, I know that I'm alive. I'm breathing. I have shelter over my head. I have shoes on my feet. I am breathing. I am living in a safe, probably one of the safest in the world or something. Like there's literally nothing going on in my neighborhood. I am like, I'm okay. You know, whether I wrote that blog post that I was supposed to write, you know, in my mind it's late, you know, or whether I'm able to get through my to-do list before our trip to Turkey or not, we are okay. So if I'm able to change my perspective from like, whoa, to a higher vantage point and say, okay, I'm breathing, and that gives me an opportunity at every single moment to restart, rewind, re-forgive, restart.
Well, it's this idea of gratitude, right? That just brings such a calm and like lighter feeling to all of us, I think, when we realize what we are grateful for. And it could be as simple as, I'm grateful for this breath that I got to take right now, you know? And like, I feel like just sharing those feelings and like those words and like saying the things that we're grateful for, like our body like hears that and resonates with that. That's healing in itself. Does that resonate with you?
It's so the gratitude thing, I think it doesn't have to be that you have this big beautiful journal that you write on, you know, or there's a jar that you put there. It can just be like you're describing. It can just be your breathing, and like, I'm thankful to be breathing just in that moment. It can just be a sensation and a feeling. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think
it makes a lot.
So just to kind of piggyback off of that, I've been listening to this meditation that calls it's called like Make It Sacred, or Life is Sacred, or something like that. And I think going back to what you're talking about like, you know, you don't try to heal. You can do all this energetic work, but until you change your perspective. And for me, like, this woman does meditation, talks about life being sacred. And it's like, you know, the first thing she says in the meditation is like, you know, touch your eyes and think about how different your world would be if you did not have them. You know, and that just like slams home like this, wow, yeah, you're right. Like, if I couldn't see all this beauty that's before me, you know, and I think it really is so much about, you know, healing really, in my case, and I think everyone's, is just perspective too. It's like just changing that perspective.
Yeah, but it's hard to do when you're in pain, right?
Yeah. No,
when you're in excruciating pain. Yeah. Like I was when I mean, I still get migraines sometimes, and so to me, I've just learned to see them as, you know, how your computer just shuts itself down sometimes. Yes. It's like there's nothing you can do. It's all like,
yes.
So to me, when I get a migraine, it's that, like, it's like, okay, you're gonna stop doing, you gotta be. So it's that reminder that, and I like, I can't engage with life at that, like, I need to be in a dark room or whatever. So you just shut yourself off, and then you restart the next day. How does gratitude come into that? To be completely honest, in that moment, it's really hard, in that moment of pain. But then in hindsight, I can be like, I'm grateful for my system to shut me down when I need to reevaluate things, when I need to just reevaluate my priorities. Is my priority, you know, the million to-do lists for my business or for my life? Or is my priority just breathing this moment, which literally, if I'm in that much pain, I'm going to be able to just breathe and do nothing else.
Absolutely. Wow.
Okay, so my daughter and I were talking. I invited her to my podcast, but
I saw that. How'd that go?
I did, and she writes beautiful stories. And she said in the interview, she said, every story needs a problem. And I asked why. She said it makes it more interesting. So that's another way of looking at it, I guess.
Really cool. Wow, so much with a 7-year-old. Dang.
Yeah. Well, because if everything was just like smooth sailing all of the time, I feel like we wouldn't really have. You need the lows so that you can feel the highs, right? So
Yes, and I feel like for me, part of my journey has been like, you know, the society sort of expects you to be that, you know, linear, no ups and downs, kind of smooth sailing person, whereas my experience has always been like la 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 la.
I can relate to hand raised.
And I thought so much of my life, I thought something was wrong with me until I realized no, like the earth goes through these changes just with the moon cycle, which affects us all. It affects us all. And we as women go through the moon cycle in our own menstrual cycles. And men go through this cycle on a shorter 24-hour base. So, and Kate Northrup actually talks a lot about this in her book, Do Less. But so within those cycles, I think it's important to realize, like, when we are going into that fight with ourselves to say, okay, like, where am I in this cycle, and how can I be with this? How can I be with this? It comes back to that for me. How can I be with this with love, with compassion, with just extra kindness towards myself and others? And then in the moments that I am not, which happens more often than not, I just go back to myself and apologize.
Ooh, I don't think I do that very often. But I think it's important too, because oftentimes, like, I think we've had this conversation, is like, let's say you had some failure or something's hurting or you have a migraine or something's going on. I know personally, you know, I'll speak in I statements here. Like, in my past, I tend to beat myself up a lot. Whereas it's like, well, what if that was your friend or your mom or your sister or your dad or whatever? Would you treat them the same way? Would you say the same stuff you're saying to yourself? And oftentimes the answer is no. So I think it's learning to be more gentle with yourself in that process.
Yeah. So healing begins, I think, the moment you say to yourself, like, this moment is okay, just as it is. This moment is okay, just as it is. And you're willing to open up to the possibility that it can be okay, even if it doesn't feel like okay. If you can say to yourself, I'm open to the possibility that I can be with this the best way that I can.
Sounds so easy.
Just have such a beautiful way of saying everything that it's like, I feel like I get like sucked in and I'm like, well, I guess I kind of have, this keeps popping up for me, but like this idea of, just because you do have such a beautiful like outlook on seeing everything, like this idea of chronic illnesses that just like show up in people's lives randomly, like without like, what's your outlook like on that? Like, why does that, this is a huge question, so obviously it's just like whatever comes up for you, but like this idea of chronic illness just showing up randomly in people's lives.
Mm-hmm. So there's this beautiful book called Childhood, Your Biography Becomes Your Biology. Or I may be, you know, mixing up or how your biography becomes your biology. It depends on chronic illness more often than not. Is going to show up for people who have been exposed to increasing amounts of trauma, or even like a steady amount of trauma will do it for you. We are, and if that trauma begins even before birth, when you're in the womb, meaning there's tension in the family, you're born into a situation, or whatever happens to you in your lifetime. So that's one piece that will play on. As you put more stress in the body, I call it the burnt toaster, meaning your circuits had to work so hard that some of the things got burnt. Okay, think of your neurological or like all of the circuits, the electricity in your body as like electrical wires. And some of them just short circuit because there's a lot going through them. And as children, we take things on. We feel like we need to embody other people's pain and resolve it or carry it for them. We don't distinguish between our bodies and our fields and other people's bodies. So the burned toaster, let's put the burned toaster through college versus a regular toaster. And let's put them into the process of finding a job and going into the corporate world. Like in my case, I got burned like after 2 years, even more burned because I already was coming in with some of my wires, you know, worked too much before them. So for the person who is an electrically compromised toaster, right, they need to, as they go through life, take care of themselves even more. Even more. Yeah. And then comes the reality of our life right now. So much toxicity that we have ourselves introduced to the world. So much toxicity, like non-organic food and all the sprayed chemicals actually coming to us. They have been shown to pass through generations. So whatever your grandparents ate, you're carrying that still. Or if they had been exposed to radioactivity, you're carrying that still. So there's that beautiful, you know, current coming of toxicity, more chemicals, more not natural foods, and also being exposed to this electrical stress in our lives, right? With all the non-native electromagnetic fields introduced by the smartphones, and which is allowing this to happen, by the way. But also it's creating pollution. So what do? You take care of yourself, period. That's your responsibility. So no matter how the stuff falls on your lap, no matter how burnt you are, it's your responsibility, because you are here in this shell, in this container. If you don't take care of the container, what are you going to do? It's just going to die on you, basically. So you start where you are, you do what you can, and you keep taking care of yourself.
Oh, that's so awesome. So the one thing I want to drop back to is you talked about how even the foods your ancestors ate can move into your DNA generationally. So I wonder, because a lot of us, or maybe not us, maybe more so our parents, but like you look back at the world wars, right? The trauma of war and the PTSD that came through that. And I know my grandfather is no longer with us, but he was in, I think, World War II, and his brother had said that he never came back the same. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, my family has had a lot of trauma because of that. And I look at my cousin, Zach, who was watching, I don't know if he still is, but, you know, there's been a lot of addictions. There's been suicides. There's been mental health issues. And, you know, I know for me, like I said, I've taken personal responsibility and kind of just like, I want to be the code breaker. You know what I mean? Like I'm sick of this story. Like, yes, it may have been true. Yes, I've felt through it, but like there could be a different story. So I wonder, is that always the case? I've read that like trauma, like that type of trauma just gets passed and passed and passed. It's almost like until someone wakes up to it and honors it, goes through it.
It is there. Is in a way, it's information, right? If you remove the labeling of good or bad, it's the information in the familial line is to, and the familial line always will want to protect itself. So you got to be able to realize when you are taking a life-affirming step, like you are doing, Sean, you know, going on the road, following your dreams, creating something beautiful, whatever, you got to be able to realize that fear is going to keep showing up, or that tendency to protect. And it may show up as heaviness. It may show up as sadness. It may show up as discomfort. So then your job becomes moving through that, moving through that, moving through that. There's no one way of doing it. And then, but one thing you can be sure of is, though, when you change your story, it's going to affect every single story around you, in you and around you. And it's been shown that the DNA actually can communicate across a wide variety of distances.
Wow.
So if you work with your DNA, it doesn't have any other choice but to communicate with all the other people who have your DNA, including people you share the room with. You're, essentially exchanging DNA, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
That's so cool.
I mean, this stuff's so cool too. Like, I maybe it's just me, but I wonder how more people don't get into this stuff. Like, I just feel like it brings me back to being a little kid, and I oftentimes describe my life as Harry Potter magic, because I feel like this stuff is magic. I mean, maybe it's not, but maybe that's my fun way of looking at it. It's just, the deeper you dive into this stuff, the more you learn, the more you can see the power of healing. And to me, it really is. It's not always, it's visible physically, but it's not always like, it's not like I can see energy being bombing out of your hands or anything, you know what I mean? So it's kind of the unseen and mystical. So it's just such a cool process. So it to me, I wonder how so many people don't know about it.
Well, too, I think it's like trust, like something that I've really been like working with lately, trust, and this idea of like trusting that your body knows what it's doing if you're giving it permission to, or just like trusting that the path that you're on, and the energy that you're surrounding yourself with is doing what is best for you in each moment. And I think a lot of times when we create like resistance to that trust, like that's when a lot of energy meltdowns begin to happen, and a lot of these might come into play.
I think I love the piece about trust because, and yes, you are magic, right? Like we are your body, you are magic, right? And then the trust piece is, it's okay to not know. We are so conditioned to believe that like we got to see like 10 steps ahead. We got to know and control each and every single thing that's happening here in the now, and we got to be able to control our feelings about the past and like control everything. But it's okay to not know, and it's okay to not know how to navigate to now even. But when you introduce trust isn't about like knowing everything, but trust is about just what's the next like small step that I can take? What's the next little thing that I can do today and tomorrow? And I'm following that path. Like I'm not saying, don't, if you're running a business, of course you need to do certain things, and you need to make sure certain things are in place. But on a general level, there needs to be an openness to allow for what's coming in. And what's coming in may be the discomfort. What's coming in may be some clues, and being willing to sit with that for a little bit.
And I wonder, I want to get your thoughts on this, just because, so I've been called by my friends and cousins like the symbolic cliff jumper, if you will. I feel like I've taken a lot of big extreme action to like make change, which sometimes necessary, but I feel like not always. And like sometimes those extreme actions cause some turmoil that maybe didn't need to be there. So I feel like there's an importance to taking small actions, and even those small actions, like you said, like that one step can either be the thing that creates momentum, or it can even just be bigger than you can see, and just having the trust that these small actions are making big impacts.
What do you need? You gotta think about okay, so some part of you needed to make a big jump, to make a big gesture and make a big step, because the gap you were looking at or looking to overcome was also big. Does that make sense?
That hits so
in that case, just take the big leap then.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I feel like that's been my life path, is like just constant big leap after big leap, and I think they're starting to get smaller now, which is less tumultuous. But I also think that in a lot of ways, emotionally behind, which is a huge thing to be behind in. And like there was just this codependency, there was all kinds of different things where like for me it just felt like I needed to do something extreme to, and whether that was like my soul, I feel like my soul loves to throw me into challenges, because I have found in my life that challenges and hardship have built my character and built me into this person where like now I'm like, all right, I mean, we're going to get through it. So, you know, like throw what you're going to throw. Like, I know I'm going to be able to handle it. But there was a time where, I mean, that the simplest things were impossible.
You know, some people get even more closed off with challenges. And then other people get humbled and more compassionate and open. I was sitting in a restaurant a couple of days ago, and I'm watching the people, and because I read the energy and I read the chakras, and I'm able to see like who is struggling. Like there were these a few adult men who were like, I could tell they're in a certain mindset and their fields are constricted. And then there walked in this this younger guy, and I could tell he had been through trauma, but he was more open and more gentle even. Like I don't know how to describe it, but he wasn't like I could see him dancing if he wanted to dance, you know? So he was more like, okay, like life happened and that made me wiser, and let me roll with it.
Absolutely.
So when, yeah, I don't know if that answered or if that speaks to what you just spoke about.
I mean, yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think it's just this idea that, again, coming back to perspective, like challenges in my eye, I guess I personally have taken on this stance of like, I will never let life change the way I treat people. I mean, and again, not to say I'm not perfect and I don't have my like plastic in the mouth cat out every once in a while, but it's like no matter what hardships I've faced, I'm like, I'm not going to create a story that all people are bad or something, or get jaded or shut down or constrict myself. I'm just going to let these give me more understanding of people's trauma and pain, and just hopefully be a more compassionate human moving forward, and just makes me even more driven to try and spread light and healing to people in any way I can.
Yes, but also it doesn't mean that you're gonna keep saying yes to everyone. No. Right? You can be compassionate, but you can also have boundaries.
100%. That's been a big one. Well, I mean, that's every human being alive, but that's been a huge one for me. How about you?
Yeah. Boundaries are important.
Yeah, when you're in a 40-foot bus, you need to have important boundaries.
I think again, it just comes back to this idea of holding space for all of the emotions that come up. I mean, like just this morning, we had a moment.
Yeah, we had a plastic cat moment.
We had a moment this morning where it's like, but I'm learning too, like even in the last like 10 days, really like recognizing kind of emotions before they become something. Like this idea of like resentment. Like I know in my past, like resentment's been a huge thing where I've like held on to emotions and like really let them like bottle up until they explode, you know, and nothing good comes from that. But it's like I realized the other day, like recognizing an emotion or like something that was happening between us, like here in this living situation, and I was like, you know what, if we don't talk about this now, this is going and like address why this feeling is happening now, then like in a couple of days or in a couple months or whatever, like this is going to be some real big deep like resentment for one another. So it's like,
yeah. Let me ask you this: who holds resentment in your family?
Ooh.
In whose family? My family?
Your family.
Oh, geez.
Getting drilled. Love it.
You don't have to answer that, but just think about it. Like, who is that coming from?
Oh,
right?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
So it may not be just your pattern
Mm.
that you are reliving.
Yeah. That's deep.
I love it. Mirror reflecting right back
at you. Well, I mean, I feel like that's like every day in this living situation, honestly.
Yeah, but you just hear though, like, so all right. So Damla, we have, it's tough. We've driven 3,000 miles, so feeling ground.
It's been raining. We've seen like almost nobody but ourselves.
So trying to get grounded is challenging. Like you said, we had at one point there were 70 women in this bus. I'm sure they had great energy, but like it's challenging. And it's like just trying to remember, like, hey, we're a team. It's like you and me versus the issue, not like you versus me. And just really trying to communicate. And like, honestly, I feel like we're great. I can't believe this is turning into this, but yeah, I think we're doing great. But there is. Yeah. Like I don't want to do rainbows and ponies because like I look at a lot of these like van life stories on Instagram and like yeah, it's all pretty pictures and stuff. It's like, dude, you're in like a 10-foot van with that person. Like it's another human being, and I mean, at the end of the day, you can't. It's tough to escape. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to deal with it. Like, which is, I think, a great way to grow.
Okay, let me ask you this: which of you is enjoying this journey more? Meaning, just from the standpoint of just physically, who would you say is more in their element?
I feel like I'm really in my element. I love it.
Yeah, that's what I see. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think I would be more in my element if I was by myself.
Exactly. So, Sean, for you, I'm seeing you like this is it, man. Like you like being on the road, you're all open. And Michaela, you're like, I need my space, kind of, or more like not your space, but would you say you're someone like you need certain things in place, like you want your environment in a certain way?
I didn't used to think so, but maybe. Yeah. Like I like to wake up and like have like X amount of time to myself and like do like X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
So Sean, you need to remember that she's not having the experience that you're having.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Which is not her fault and which is not your fault. So certain things that you can tolerate, she's not going to be able to tolerate that much. And for you, Michaela, you got to get away sometimes. I think you're allowed to get off the bus, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like,
if you can go to, I don't know, like a bookstore,
coffee shop,
go have coffee by yourself, and that's what feels like. I mean, mind. And you also need, Michaela, you need to remember that like you are by no means in any obligation to experience it the way he does. Like you'll find your own way. You're already finding you have your little coffee or tea mug, and you're wearing comfy clothes or whatever. Like you get to experience it your way, and then you gotta kind of find a way to make it work between the two of you. That piece you'll figure out, but kind of maybe stepping out to say, like, what do I need? What do I need to nourish myself?
That's so awesome that you say that, actually, because we were talking about this the other day, and I was saying to Sean, like, I feel like for me personally, this is an experience and a journey where I'm like really learning to cultivate like this self-love for myself without like any kind of reliance on another person. So that's very like you, yeah.
Okay, guys, we're getting a small taste of the powers of Damla. So this was awesome. Thank you for Damla. This is great. I want to say it's spot on. whether she's laughing or not, we're secretly laughing hysterically inside. And I think you did this for us last time. You know, I think you had just like at the end, you know, you're just reading our chakras and you're like, hey, like, I know for me, you're like, one of your major issues is you give your power away, which I was like, okay, that's like spot on. So
you asked me if all my needs are being met.
Yeah, you know, so yeah, so Dom was really good at what I'm trying to say. And
okay, one more small thing for Michaela. So you don't have to tell us who that is, but that person that holds resentment in your family, do they allow themselves to have their needs met? So that's another piece for you to think about. Right. Meaning, do you allow yourself to have your needs met?
Yeah.
Boom.
Not on a conscious level, but subconsciously. Good stuff.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Damla. I think we got to end with our famous ending question. So what does living with a wild heart mean to you?
Oh, goodness. I think it's that just with what we're all doing, just waking up every morning.
We're slowly are like tilting this way.
Right. No matter what happens, you wake up every morning and it's a new day.
I love that.
And that's great. I mean, that sounds so just cliche maybe or easy. It's not. Like deciding to wake up every morning and go back into your life, that's hard. So I applaud every single person who is listening, and I applaud you guys and myself too for doing that.
Yeah.
To attack life with new energy every day.
Well, I think there's so much power in that. You know, it's just realizing like the statement, it is cliche, every day is a new day, but it really is like, I think on this journey, like days have felt like literally one day feels like a week. So it's this like, oh, it's like, all right, just nailed that last week. All right, here we go. Today's like a new week. You know what I mean?
Only Tuesday?
Yeah, like it's just a great opportunity if you can have that perspective. And I know for me, I find myself doing that. Like, okay, all that happened yesterday, that's done. Redo, get better today.
You do. And for you guys, just one more little thing that's coming in is just drink water, please. Drink more water. Okay. Like you're feeling a little dry.
Yeah.
Oh, more water.
You're definitely dry.
I'm definitely dry.
Like every 2-3 hours.
Okay.
More.
All right, where's the water? I'm gonna get on.
Oh, Damla, I don't want you to leave.
Yeah.
You stay.
Thank you so much. And just do what you're doing. You guys are amazing. Look at what you've created. Look at this. And I'm impressed. Like I would have freaked out in the morning with the technical stuff, but you were like, yeah, we're gonna figure it out. So, and you did figure it out. So thank you.
Thank you so much
for
your patience and for all of your beautiful healing and insight. I hope people.
Yeah, and that was my practice in the morning was like I trust them. They're gonna figure it out. Like I don't have to control this situation. That was my practice in the morning.
So real quick for you, where can the people find you? Because I want them to find you.
So badly, I want people.
Yes, a drop of om is the name of my business. So a dropofom.com, ADROPOFOM.com. And they can go in, they can download a resource called 12 Questions to Determine Your Energetic Wounds, which really gives you this whole list that you can sort of read and self-evaluate what might be needing your attention vibrationally for healing. And then I have a podcast called Conversations with Healers. We talk all about self-healing and healing. You can go there. There's a lot of good information there and inspiration. And I'm pretty reachable. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Like if you need to ask a question or just say hi, find me.
Amazing. And so if people wanted to set up an appointment with you or what?
All on my website, and I do all my appointments either via internet or in person in Durham, New Hampshire. But yeah, they can work with me from anywhere in the world.
So distance healing is a thing, and as you can see,
it is a thing.
Magic.
The entanglement, remember the Big Bang?
Yes.
It is a thing.
All right.
Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Monday.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for watching.
All right, everyone, get out there and have a great week.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.